I was advised against forming any attachments. It stood as one of the foundational tenets of private nursing, particularly when it came to the care of long-term patients. Maintain a professional demeanor. Be mindful not to linger once your shift concludes. Exercise caution in your approach. Ensure your voice retains its strength when you utter their name, yet no one ever imparted the wisdom of how to respond when a patient gazes at you in such a manner. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Claire. At the age of 56, I find myself a widow, having dedicated the past 16 years to my profession as a private nurse in the northern suburbs of Chicago. My husband Daniel departed peacefully in his sleep, a sudden heartache. One night he was present, and by the next morning his side of the bed lay cold and flat, as if he had effortlessly slipped between the pages of time. Following his passing, I found myself unable to return to the hospital. I was unable to. The incessant beeping, the relentless machines, the rhythmic ticking of clocks and IVs sent shivers down my spine. Silence was essential for me. I sought a pace that was gentler, more intimate. It was at that moment that I began to accept private cases. That is how I came to know David. At the age of 68 he was already a fixture of the Leighton estate. When I first arrived, a case of recovery following heart surgery, typical postoperative care. Agency cautioned me that he was particular. He had a strong aversion to being watched closely. His wife Helen would probably be away on business for the majority of the recovery period. What remained unspoken was the fact that he possessed the kindest eyes I had ever encountered. In a man of his years, they never revealed his preference for coffee, black, no sugar, even when the bitterness of his medications lingered in the cup. It was not mentioned that his shirts were perpetually crisp. Rather, it was observed that his hands quivered as he attempted to fasten them. They did not mention the profound loneliness that enveloped him, an aching solitude in that expansive modern house, characterized by its sterile white counters and a silence that resonated more intensely than any emergency room alarm. Each day I made my arrival at 7 a.m., assessed his vital signs, administered his medication, guided him through soothing stretches, prepared the oatmeal to his liking, adorned with a mere dusting of cinnamon. He exhibited a courteous demeanor. Reddick, I never spoke excessively, yet he observed details. You have a habit of humming while you cook, he remarked on the third morning. I was unaware. Which song is it? Merely shrugged. I'm not quite sure. It's a melody my mother would often hum. He inclined his head in acknowledgement, did not press. Yet as dawn broke he serenaded me with the melody once more, and a smile graced my lips, one that had eluded me for years. A moment stands out in my memory with an unparalleled clarity. The hour was just shy of noon. He had just emerged from the shower and found himself in need of assistance with changing. Typically, I arranged his garments and exited the room. Consistently respected his need for solitude without fail. On that particular day, I discovered him poised by the mirror, shirt clutched in hand, his brow deeply furrowed. His fingers struggled, attempting and ultimately failing to fasten the top button. First, he remained oblivious to my presence, yet in that moment he remained silent. He merely gazed at me, gazed right through me, as if I were not a nurse. I was once someone who understood the art of loving a man in the quietest of ways, through gentle hands, unwavering patience, and a soft eye. I traversed the expanse of the room, grasped the fringe of the cloth. May I I inquired. He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. He then nodded. My fingers grazed his collarbone. His breath caught in his throat. I remained silent. He did not either. I meticulously fastened each button one by one intentionally. For the first time since Daniel's passing, I became acutely aware of the length of time that had elapsed since I had felt the warmth of another's skin against mine, unencumbered by the barrier of gloves. On that particular night I lingered longer than I typically would. He inquired whether I would care for a glass of wine. Nurses ought not to indulge in drinks while on duty, I quipped. Are you still on duty? He inquired, his tone soft and inviting. Remained silent. The living room was our gathering place. The fire crackles softly, its warmth enveloping the room. The lights fade into darkness. He inquired about my husband. I revealed it all to him. The stillness, the sorrow. The nights I continued to stretch out in bed, hoping to encounter the warmth of another's breath. He shared with me the story of Helen concerning the space that separates them, reflecting on how she had once cherished his ambition. He now wielded it as a justification for her absence. We share the same roof, he remarked. Yet her laughter has been absent from my life for years. It wasn't until my finger succumbed to a numbing stillness that we became aware of our intertwined hands. As I departed, he accompanied me to the threshold. Appreciate it, he remarked. In favor of remaining, I inclined my head in agreement. Yet, as I settled into my car, a suffocating weight enveloped me, making it hard to draw in a breath. My hands trembled. I found myself unable to sleep that night. The memory lingered, his pulse dancing beneath my fingertips. As I brushed against the fabric of his dirt, it lacked any semblance of romance. Not at this moment. It was something far more dreadful. The atmosphere was profoundly personal. Begun to embrace the art of wearing perfume once more. Not a great deal. Only a touch sufficiently ample, a gentle touch, a whisper of existence. Convinced myself it was merely a routine. It was meant for me. Yet on Thursday morning, as I leaned in to offer David his pills, he breathed in softly. Then a smile graced their lips. You carry the scent of home, he remarked. I refrained from inquiring about its meaning, for I was already aware. The day was shrouded in a blanket of gray clouds. Our pace was uncharacteristically sluggish. His strides had diminished, his knees rigid. I guided him down the stairs, my hand resting gently on his elbow, while the other supported his lower back. His body quivered with every subtle shift, and I sensed the delicate form of him beneath the soft flannel. Our conversations were few and far between, yet the silence had transformed. It bore a greater weight, now anticipatory, a silence that lingers, poised for the moment of rupture. As I offered him his tea, our fingers brushed against one another. His thumb grazed the delicate skin of my wrist, a fleeting moment that lingered in the air, yet it seared. I entered the kitchen, let cold water cascade over my hands, and gazed at the sink as if it held the power to cleanse the relentless thrum in my throat. Once more I lingered beyond the setting sun. He inquired whether I might join him as he listened to a record, an ancient one, from the days when Helen still twirled barefoot in the kitchen. He remarked. We refrained from dancing, yet we remained in close proximity. Our shoulders brushed against one another. The joints that bear our weight, our breasts, decelerate, harmonizing with the cadence of a love song long lost to memory. Have you ever pondered the idea of being touched once more? He inquired, his voice low and unexpected. My gaze fell upon him. His gaze was elsewhere only. The blaze, as if he feared my response. Each day, I remarked, in a state of bewilderment I departed. Inside the car, an uncontrollable tremor coursed through me. I glanced down at my lap and noticed that I had been clutching the hem of my skirt with such intensity that my knuckles had turned pale. Uncertain of the moment it shifted, I was aware that it had. On Friday morning he found himself in the study. I presented his breakfast on a tray. Upon my entrance, he rose as though he had been anticipating my arrival. "Pen something for you," he remarked. He presented me with a carefully folded piece of paper. It was a piece of verse. Simply a brief note on the subject of silence. The aroma of cinnamon wafts through the air, a warm and inviting scent that evokes memories of cozy gatherings and sweet delights. A tale of a woman who softly hummed the melodies of yesteryear. He averted his gaze. While I perused it, I remained silent. Was unable to. As I set the tray down, my fingers grazed his wrist. Neither of stirred. As I gathered my belongings, that evening he inquired, "Would you ever come here simply to visit?" Not in the capacity of my nurse. My breath. "Is that permissible?" inquired. He offered a smile. Perhaps. Yet what if it seemed right? Remained silent. I merely inclined my head deliberately and with purpose. Stepped into the frigid night, heart racing with each beat. Helen had yet to return home. Yet I had yet to confide in anyone about how his gaze transported me to another realm, making me lose all sense of my surroundings. Not the windy city, not a caregiver, not a widow. Merely a woman, a presence that evoked the essence of home for another. Yearning deeply for an invitation to cross the threshold. With careful precision I brewed the coffee, arranged his pills with intention, and sliced a half grapefruit, its vibrant flesh glistening in the morning light. Even recalled the additional honey for his toast. Silence enveloped the house, interrupted only by the faint hum of the dishwasher in the distance. Once more I found myself humming. The familiar melody lingers on, the memory I never intended to hold on to. Suddenly the sound of the front door creaking open reached my ears. The hour was still too early for the cleaning lady to arrive. It is premature for deliveries. And I caught the sound of her heels. Up top, David. Her voice shimmered with a cool brightness reminiscent of a chandelier, capturing the sun's rays. I stood motionless in the kitchen doorway. Helen. She entered, adorned in a sharp beige trench coat, her hair neatly pulled back and her lips painted a striking red, graceful, exacting. Everything is in its rightful order. Regarded me with a hint of astonishment, perhaps a sense of bewilderment, yet not. You must be Claire. Gave a slight nod. Good morning, Mrs. Layton. She glanced at David, who entered the room with deliberate slowness, relying on his cane for support. You never mentioned how beautiful she is, she remarked, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. David remained silent, his expression unchanged. His smile was scarcely visible. He simply remarked, Claire has been looking after me quite well indeed. With a gentle touch, Helen reached out to adjust his collar. Perceived that clearly. The remainder of the day faded into a haze. I glided through the house, an ethereal presence. In the stillness, discreet yet proficient. Yet I sensed her gaze upon me. During lunch, she graciously extended her assistance in plating the food. I respectfully declined. No, she murmured. He used to prepare meals for me back when the company hadn't taken over, back when I still remembered how to return home. Chose not to reply. What words might I choose to express myself? Her eyes flicked toward me. He rarely mentions me, does he? I gently shook my head. Not quite. She nodded, a gesture that seemed to validate a fear she had long harbored. He would speak of me constantly, she murmured. As the evening approached, my departure was scheduled for 7 o'clock. My bag was packed and ready with my keys firmly grasped in hand. With each step toward the door, I felt David's presence trailing behind me. He remained silent until I was already halfway out the door. Then softly she inquired about your identity. I pivoted. Pardon me, what was that you just uttered? He paused, uncertainty flickering in his. I expressed. You were a person I longed to have encountered earlier. Throat constricted. David, yet just as I was about to conclude, the lights in the hallway sprang to life behind us. Helen remained poised in that moment. Would you care to join us for dinner, Claire? Her voice exuded a serene tranquility, calculated, yet her gaze was piercing. Words eluded me. He uttered the most regrettable words. Indeed, the dinner table resembled a silent battlefield. 3 vessels, 3 dishes, 3 prongs, yet merely 2 narratives unfold. Helen inquired about my deceased husband. David adjusted his position, a hint of discomfort evident in his demeanor. She inquired about my profession, my timetable, whether I had a preference for living positions. Imagine your loyalty to your patients runs deep, she remarked. I inclined my head in agreement. I make an effort to be. She then shifted her gaze to David. So, David, are you truly being loyal to me? A chill swept through the room. David remained unperturbed. Are you inquiring whether I am involved in an affair with my nurse? Helen inclined her head. Ought I to be? David rose to his feet. He appeared utterly drained. Exhaustion that seeps into the very marrow of my being. Perhaps you should reflect on why it took you 3 weeks to realize I was missing stillness. The desire to vanish consumed me, yet I found myself unable to stir. For the first time, I found myself transcending the role of a mere nurse, became the catalyst for a man to rediscover the essence of being truly seen. And thus, another woman came to the poignant realization that she had forgotten the art of seeing. The following morning, Helen departed, not with a cry, not with a forceful closure of the door. With gentle farewell, she pressed a kiss to David's cheek, leaving behind the delicate scent of white gardenia, perfume drifting like a ribbon in the. She will return on Monday, he remarked. Friday had arrived. He lingered in the doorway, clad in his robe, observing as her car glided away from the drive. His shoulders bore the weight of tension. His expression was a mystery. In silence, I gathered the breakfast dishes, my actions echoing louder than words. Yet an electric sensation stirred within me. The house was enveloped in an unusual stillness. Not even prior to her arrival home. At afternoon, I lingered beyond the hour of 5. He felt weary, more pallid than normal. I reassured myself that I should observe him for a while longer. Yet that was not the reason for my lingering presence. Not quite. I replaced his bandage softly with great care. My fingers glided with deliberate slowness. His skin radiated warmth beneath the delicate gauze. Thank you, he murmured, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. His hand grasped mine, and this time I remained steadfast. We found ourselves in the den. The hearth radiated warmth. He spun an ancient jazz record, gentle saxophone reminiscent of sighs and longing. The details of our conversation have slipped my mind. Was merely a matter of how closely we were seated. Our thighs brushed against each other, our fingers entwined, not as if they were lovers, as if individuals had lingered far too long in search of gentleness. He cast his gaze in my direction, and I cast my gaze behind me. Silence speaks volumes. His hand brushed against my cheek. I allowed him to proceed unhindered. He pressed his lips against mine. There was no pressing need or in a state of desperation. It was filled with deep respect, a form of contrition, a form of supplication. As he drew back, he uttered the single phrase that shattered me entirely. I sense a renewed vitality within me. The bedroom lay shrouded in shadows. We both chose to leave the light off. We held our ground. We took time. We shed our layers as if peeling away the protective shields we were. For the first time in more than 10 years, someone followed the curve of my spine as if it held significance. He reached out to me as if he were grasping at a fleeting memory, something he believed had slipped away from him. Caressed him as if I sought to imprint every detail in my mind before dawn arrived, and when it concluded, silence enveloped us. We simply reclined in silence. Still, his fingers were through my hair. The sheets lingered with a subtle trace of his wife's perfume. David had drifted into slumber many hours prior. In the gentle glow of the dim light, he appeared serene, the soft rhythm of his chest rising and falling, his lips slightly parted, one hand still curled close to the spot where mine had rested. In the stillness of the night, I found myself lying awake in the guest room, yet I found myself unable to close my eyes. The ceiling held my gaze, an expanse of stillness above me. The soft, persistent hum of the fridge filled the air around me, reflected on the sensation of being desired, of experiencing a touch free from any sense of duty. Suddenly the phone rang. 2:04 in the morning. The ancient landline nestled in the corridor. I quietly slipped out of bed, my heart racing with anticipation. Answered on the second ring. Greetings. A moment of stillness. Suddenly a voice emerged. Claire, Helen. Instantly my throat felt parched. Indeed, yet another moment of stillness. I am aware of your lingering presence. Chose not to reply. He no longer sleeps through the night. He never has. So unless there's something new on his chart, it's you who will be answering this call. She felt no anger. Quiet, unremarkable. Her voice carried a weariness. Exhausted to the core. I didn't reach out to blame you. He pressed on. I reached out in search of clarity. I shut my eyes. What is there to understand? She released her breath in a measured, deliberate manner. What it feels like to be caressed by a soul that is already drifting away. Found myself perched on the stairs. Conversation lasted for 40 minutes. Perhaps our words never crossed paths. Perhaps we have simply laid our truths. She recounted the business trips that seemed to stretch on indefinitely, the hotel rooms that exuded a warmth and familiarity surpassing that of her own. She revealed that David had ceased his invitations to dance long ago. Yet she never inquired as to the reason. When I laid eyes on you, she confessed, it wasn't betrayal that coursed through me. It was the sting of feeling replaced. I loathed the ease with which he stepped in. But above all, I despised how relieved I felt. Still, A sense of relief washes over me that another was occupying the void she could no longer muster the strength to fill. "Do you love him?" she inquired. Found myself unable to deceive. Indeed, she remained silent for an extended period. Then, with a voice that faltered only briefly, she uttered, "Look after him, Blair." More than I ever did. Connection was abruptly severed. Lingered in that place until the first light of dawn broke the horizon. Light gently filtered through the windows. The house stirred gradually, reminiscent of a weary hound unfurling its limbs. David discovered me in the kitchen, draped in my robe, clutching the phone as if it were poised to ring once more. "Are you all right?" he inquired. I inclined my head in agreement. He advanced with measured intent. "Was there a call?" My gaze fell upon him, truly observed. In that instant, every contour of his face became vividly apparent to me. Decision, each regret, every softness, remains tucked away in the depths of his. "Indeed," I replied, "a person took action." He refrained from pressing. He simply embraced me. For the first time, I felt free from the weight of being a nurse. I did not perceive myself as an I sensed I was the sole individual remaining who understood the art of listening when a man murmured in his dreams. That morning when our lips met, it held no trace of guilt. It was never about fleeing. It revolved around the act of remaining, at last remaining.